So I'm standing out on my front deck here. This is a deck I built 12 years ago or something. So it's withstood the test of time well, but I built it out of wood that wasn't pressure treated because that's all I could afford, at the time. And we tried to keep it painted and this and that, but painting horizontal surfaces, even stain or putting sealant on horizontal painted surfaces, a lot of times that just doesn't last. I've gotten a lot of recommendations over the years, heard a lot of guys talk about what products they use that last, but none of them seem to last. Oil-based, water-based, when you put it on a horizontal surface, they just don't last as well. This was properly prepped, sanded even with regular sanders. And then I put the best quality paint that money could buy on it. And I mean, it didn't take that long. It started coming off. But this went through the same process. Look at that. All the verticals are just holding up nicely. Everything vertical. This is where cats sit and scratch it. That's why that's a little bit marked. But other than that, all my verticals, even this board, all the way around, have holding up nicely. And then you come up here to the horizontals, and you have wood rotting. You have paint just coming off in sheets. Same with over here. Now, you don't have much paint coming off here because it's beneath this tree, so it doesn't see the moisture. But you come over here and it drips down off of the roof, and I'm going to be putting gutters on this house. That's one of the next projects I'm doing. But since I haven't yet, you can see it just takes it right off. Same with here. These are all, they have nails in them in just the one side, so you can clean under them. But look, all that paint's holding up nicely. But look at the paint on either side. And these were all properly prepped, and I used the best quality paint I could find on them. And honestly, I've never come across a product that truly withstands the test of time on horizontal surfaces like that. So I've got some, I got a big pile of pressure treated lumber that I bought for this job. I'm going to be leaving the spindles. I'm even going to be leaving these boards, even though they're not pressure treated, they're holding up great. But I am going to be replacing the handrails and everything horizontal. All the handrails, the steps, the ramp, just the surface. Underneath it, the structure's still in great shape. But as you can see here, and this board does it, and this board here does it, this one here does it, because I don't have gutters on the house. I am going to remedy that, but first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tear all this up and get all the horizontals replaced. And while I'm at it, this door seal inside here, and I actually did this floor before we moved in. This was part of what we did. We redid all the floors. So this was all new at one time, and this was probably 12 years ago. But as you can see, about ready to fall through it. You can fall through there, or you could fall through there. And before winter, I want to go ahead and get this taken care of. So I'm going to pull this door out of here, see how bad the rot beneath it goes. I've got another door. The only reason I'm replacing the door is because we were sitting there watching TV here last fall. It was about a year ago. Sitting there watching TV, and all of a sudden we hear this bang come from outside, and it sounded like a major league pitcher had hit the side of the door or the house with a fastball. I mean, I came outside and I'm looking around, and both of us were looking around. We're like, what was that? You know what? We couldn't see anything. And all of a sudden I hear this sound going behind me, and I turn around and realize that this has two sets of glass in it, the fancier set here, and then a regular glass pane on the outside. And out of nowhere, nothing actually hit it. The boom we heard was the sound of this glass just breaking. For no reason. I thought maybe a bird flew into it at full speed, which I don't know why they would in a window you can't see through. But I was trying to find a reason. What the heck hit my window? But there was no spot in the glass, which by then, the sound I was hearing, that sound, that was the glass just breaking, turning into little cubes everywhere. And I could see no one spot on the glass where it started. No one puncture spot. No one spot where an impact started it. It just, I don't know, started on its own. I don't know how or why. I've never seen or heard anything like it. And so as you can see, the remnants of it. And I said, well, we'll just replace it before winter. And then I never got to it. So it sat all winter, and now it's sat all summer. And so now it's been a year. And so I do need to replace this door with something a little more competent. And I do have a door the exact same size. So I'm going to pull this door and door frame out of here. Then I'm going to go underneath it and fix all of the rotted material underneath it. And if that rotted material happens to stretch down the side of the house, if the outside of the house is rotted, where the deck structure down below the decking here, where the structure meets the house and is lagged to the house, if that's all rotted, then at that point I will strip all the decking off of the deck to get rid of the extra weight, and then I will unscrew the deck from the house, and then I will pull the deck back and leave it out in the yard a little further, a couple feet out, so I can actually replace everything that needs it on the front of the house. But I have yet to determine that. If that's not rotted, then I'm in luck, and that's one step I don't have to do. But first thing I'm going to do, tear the door out of here, tear the door frame out of here, see what we've got for rot, replace everything that is rotted before I put the door back in. And we're expecting storms this afternoon, so I'm hoping to have that new door back in this afternoon. We'll just have to see how it goes. And then secondarily, I'll be replacing the decking. So that probably won't happen today, but it will probably happen tomorrow. Good morning. I do have my work cut out for me. Very odd. I was pretty impressed. I'm gonna do what I always do on these trucks. And that just happens to be my thing, by the way. This paint job's probably 5-6 years old. All right, I'm pretty happy with that. And here he is leaving. It wasn't quite as fun as I was expecting. And that starts right about now. Alright, so here's what we're looking at. I redid parts of this floor when we redid the floors in this house, but just the parts that needed the most help. At that time, this wasn't one of them. As you can see, this is just powder. The pieces that came out are soaking wet. You could wring them out, and you could just compress them, break them easily. There's just nothing left of this. So I'm gonna have to dig this out, pull all this trim out. I'm gonna have to pull all this flooring out that I did put in, and go back as far as I need to get to fresh material and go ahead and replace all this. Okay, now I've got this all torn out and I'm back to all good material. I went back as far as I needed to get to just good material and clear back to the floor joists themselves. And you have a little bit of rot going on here. I'm going to go ahead and reinforce all that anyway, but as you can see, it's not very far down into there. Not even 1/8 of an inch. You can't even hardly scratch the surface of it, so that's not bad. I've done quite a few of these in trailer houses and stuff back when I was a carpenter that were more than halfway down through the 2x8, so that's nothing to worry about. But I am going to go ahead and reinforce across here and across here, and then I'm also going to bring this level up because of the way they build these double wides. You see that layer right there? Every fourth joist, because these are 16-inch centers, they have a piece of particle board on top that's about that wide that goes all the way here to help attach the all the edges. So this will be the edge of a board, a 4-foot board, and that's the edge of a 4-foot board. And right where they all meet, they put those extra pieces of particle board across the top to help prevent squeaking and to give it something solid to attach to. That, and they're built with staples and glue, so they can really pile on the staples and glue in a situation like that. So I need to, because of that, this level's a little low because I pulled that board out of there right here. This is where it was sitting. And you can see it was rotted out on the end, so it had to come out of there. But because it's gone, I now need to replace it with another board or bring this level up with a board on the side. The choice is kind of mine on a deal like that. And then once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and run braces across here and across here and across there. So this side and this side of the new boundaries both have a place to sit that's solid so they won't move against each other and squeak and be unstable. And now at this point, I've got all my bracing in. This didn't need any bracing. The sheet's going to go over the top of it. This was eaten up a little bit in that corner, so I put a brace in here to kind of build this up. Put this plywood in there to make up for the piece that I cut out that I showed you. This is fully boxed in, as you can see, all the sides. Got a spot here for the edge of the board to go, and also that we can attach this edge of the board to. Same here. And they're all 2x6. It's all just used wood that came off of this deck, in fact. And then 2x4s out here on the ends. And now at this point, I'm going to go ahead and take some measurements and go ahead and cut out a piece of, I think it's 3/4 inch plywood, and go ahead and get that nestled into place, get it screwed in so I can get the doorway in, the new door and doorway in, before those clouds start getting serious. And I'm just getting finished up just as all the rain's starting. It's just starting to come down. We got a pretty aggressive storm headed our way. And I've just got the door in to the point where I can go ahead and get the doorknob on it. Floor's in. Now we just got to get this little bit of mess cleaned up before it starts getting too active out here. And it'll be just in the nick of time. Okay, so here it is the next morning. And I'm considering this pretty much done for now. And the reason for that is because we're going to be redoing all the floors over the course of the winter. And that's when this is going to get finished out. But for today, I've got another decent day on my hands. I don't think there's going to be any rain until sometime this evening. So I think I got the whole day here. I'm going to go ahead and take this little cat condo off of the deck here. Get all these rugs pulled up. And then I'm just going to pick a starting point and start there. And start removing all of these boards and replacing them. Maybe one at a time, maybe all at once. I'll decide as I go here how exactly I'm going to do it. But I'm going to be replacing all the horizontal boards and the handrails here with pressure treated wood here today. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use these two pads here to kneel on, and I'm going to use this pick and go through and clean the stuff out of all the screws, because it's got those hex head, those Torx head screws. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that out, then get down there and blow it out, and then remove all the screws from just one board. Then I'm going to take that board over to the trailer where I have all my green treated lumber, and I'm going to set it on top of one of those 8-footers and trace it. That way we get that the length of it right, we get that angle right, we don't have to worry about remeasuring. And then I'll take the board that I cut, bring it over here, screw it back down with all the same screws. And then I'm just going to do that over and over and over until I get the whole top part here done. That way, no matter what happens today, if I get pulled away for something, or if it does rain or something like that, it's always buttoned up the whole time. And then I'll go ahead, once this is done up here, then I'll go ahead and move on to the next thing, which could be the steps, could be the ramp, could be the railings. I'll just decide then. And I've gotten this board up, and as you can see, underneath this board, when I first did this deck, I went ahead and, since this was untreated wood, I did take the time to use some polyurethane. It was stained polyurethane, but it's polyurethane nonetheless, to do the bottom of the boards and all the structure of the deck. And as you can see, look at that, cocoons from years gone by. Kind of interesting. But see these boards? They're in pristine shape because I put that poly underneath there, so they didn't have a chance to even begin to rot. And so now I know for sure I'm not going to have to do much with the structure at all. Just take these boards out, trace them onto the other boards, cut new ones, and replace them one at a time. Okay, here's that first board. Now that it's been replaced, now it's green treated, that's going to be there for many, many years. Now that I know the structure underneath it is in good shape as well, even the bottom side of that board is in good shape because I stained the bottom sides of all the boards and the structure as I was building it. A move that I now know for sure did pay off. Now, what I've decided to do is go ahead and do 2 boards at a time instead of 1, but I'm only replacing 1 at a time. I'm just keeping 2 pulled out, and the reason is because these boards, again, were not treated, and then over time they became dehydrated more and more. They lost more and more moisture and they shrunk. And that's why this gap is as big as it is. Normally I don't prefer a gap quite that big. I actually use a normal sized set of identical screwdrivers, and I put one in here, and then I scoot the next board up to it until it stops. And then the width of that screwdriver blade, just, you know, is enough. That's what I did here. But this has grown enough over the year, I could just about put my pinky in it. And the reason these gaps have grown is because the boards have shrunk. Now these pressure treated boards weigh 3-4 times as much as a normal board because they've been pumped so full of that pressure treated preservative. And what that does is, they even say if you do a pressure treated deck, don't paint it for at least a year. Paint it or stain it or anything, because it will reject it, because that stuff is still coming out. And it'll come out over the course of the next year. So what I've done is I've actually put the boards up tight. Most people would tell you don't ever build a deck like that, because then moisture doesn't have a place to go, and if it decides to constrict, it'll actually buckle. Same with a lot of different types of flooring in your house. If you run them straight from wall to wall, they'll buckle. But in this particular case, that's exactly the way you do it, because over the course of the next year or two, these are going to shrink by 10%. And I'll guarantee you a year from now, when I go to check, this gap will be about as big as I want it. It'll be about exactly the way I want it, about like that. And so doing these tight is the way to do it. And the reason I've pulled out 2 and just replaced 1 is I'm pulling out these screws, and if any of the heads break off, you need to be able to get in next to it and pry the board up. You need to be able to work next to it. But then also, because these are so much wider than these, replacing 1 at a time just won't work, because I keep leaving gaps that are just a hair smaller than these big boards are. And so eventually, it'll 2 or 3 boards in, it'll get to where the new board won't even slip in the old gap. So I'll just keep taking out 2 and putting in 1. Okay, gang, looks like this guy's finished. The top part of it's finished. The handrails aren't finished. Steps aren't finished. The ramp itself isn't finished. But I have finished the most rotted part and the most urgent part. And now I'm going to move on and do the next part, which is probably going to be the handrails. All right, there's half of my handrails, roughly, maybe a little under half. But look what kind of shape some of them were in. Just from water, once it penetrates and once it gets in. And not every board's going to do that. I mean, this board, this end looks great. That other end, though, that's just what happens. You can't predict what boards are going to do it and which ones aren't. Here's what half of it looks like. You can see I haven't touched this half yet. This one I got done. Nice and tight. Good angles. All the way back to the house. That one turned out good. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this guy done. All right, now I've got all the handrails done. As you can see, ran a sander over some of the spots where there was going to be, sharper edges or barbs. Nice, tight, got good angles. Even right here where there's a confusing sort of angle set up. And now I'm going to go ahead and begin on the ramp. And rather than replacing 1 board at a time, I'll probably do all of them, but maybe the bottom one, just so the bottom one holds the rungs in place. And then I'll get down to it and replace the bottom one. All right, now here this is all torn apart. I'm going to have to reinforce this corner a little bit. We have a little bit of rotting going on at the top here, so I'm just going to put a board across here and one down here runs to a couple feet down, just to kind of reinforce that. It's not rotted enough that I feel like I got to tear it out. Everything else is in pretty good shape. Leave these here for now until I get down this far. You can see all these boards, I believe, are the same. I'm going to measure about half a dozen of them, make darn sure they are all the same width, and then I'm just going to start cutting them out and putting them where they go. Okay, at this point I'm going to put a few tips out there for anybody building a deck or a similar type project. And right now I'm doing the ramp, and every one of those is 3 foot exactly. Every one of those boards is 3 foot long. So what you'll do is you want to buy your lumber according to that, and that's why I bought 12 footers. It was something I could fit in this trailer and not have to put a red tag on the back of, and it was also something that is divisible. If I'd have bought a bunch of 8 footers, I'd have a bunch of waste. So I did buy 8 footers for the deck itself, but I did 12 footers for all these because I knew that they were going to be 3 feet. And what you do is you use the same board to do your measurement. Don't run a tape measure and then put 3 foot and then 6 foot and then 9 foot, because you got to consider that your blade is going to take out at least 1/8 of an inch with every cut. You're going to lose, by the end you have lost 3/8 of an inch. So what I do is I cut the very first one at 3 foot, make darn sure it is perfectly 3 foot, set it up here, make a mark, move the board this way, cut it. Take the board you cut, set it aside. Don't reuse it to make another measurement, because your measurement could either grow or shrink if you take the last board you cut and lay it on there and assume it's exactly 3 foot. What if it's 3 foot and 1/8 of an inch, right? Or something like that. It's not a huge deal, but that measurement could grow or shrink. So use the same board, very same 3-footer to mark it, cut the new one, set the new one aside, use this board, mark out the next one. Do them one at a time. Don't just do them back to back, or like I said, you'll be losing 1/8 of an inch on each one. Then you'll do the next one, set it aside, then take the same board, do your measurement. Another tip is when you go to put these on, check your board to see where the heart of the wood would be. If you can, you want to try and put that down. That way, over time, when this board almost inevitably gets a cupped shape to it, though that cupped shape is facing down on both sides instead of cupping up and then holding water from there on out, and also becoming a tripping hazard. So, and it won't be as likely to cup if you screw it in right anyway, but that's just something to consider. You check the heart of the wood and you try and put that on the downside every time. And then here, try and put your screws fairly close to the outside, within 1 inch or so of the outside. That will also help prevent it from cupping and give it a good grip. But then when you do that, remember, come through and just drill them all. The center one, I don't drill. So I'll set a board up here, right? And then I will put the center screw in without having to drill it, because there's no way it's going to crack. But out here on the ends, this is awfully wet wood. It won't crack immediately, but within a year or two, it will. A lot of these will start to crack right from where you put them in, because they're only about 1 inch from the end. That's gonna make the board want to crack out there on the end. So just keep a drill with you and a driver with you, and just get in the habit of putting in the center screw. In my case, in what I'm doing here, I'll put in the center screw to hold everything, and then I will drill all 4 of these outside ones, and they don't have to be straight up and down. That means all your equipment's going to be scraping your house, and it's going to be more difficult to work with. You can go in at kind of a 15 or 10 degree angle or whatever, so that way you can come out here with it. See how far out these are? And yet the board is clear in here, but I'm not right above it. Otherwise, if I was straight up and down, I'd be hitting things together. I'd be making it needlessly difficult. So you come out here, put a slight angle on it, go about 1 inch from the outside like I've done here, and then drill each one. And that will prevent these boards from ever cracking. Okay, now I've got this finished. Now the next step is to, get a lot of this mess cleaned up. But then I need to do the steps. But I changed my mind about the steps, because I don't want to run 2x6s here, because I don't want this center board here like I had. So what I want to do is I want to run a 2x8 next to a 2x6, and that'll actually run it out a little bit further, which is fine, more than fine. It'll give this a little bit of a lip, and then I won't have that little center board in each one. But I don't have a 2x8 here that would do the job. So within the next week, I'm going to be getting a 2x8 by 12 and finishing this out with materials I'll be more happy with. Well, good morning again, gang. It's been a few days since I've had the camera on outside of the shop. I've had it on nearly every day in the shop, but I had to wait a few days until I could make a trip to a nearby town here and get some wood to finish that decking project, because I decided I was going to go ahead and do a 2x8 instead of a set of 2x6s. Well, I was going to do 2x8s and 2x6s on the steps instead of 2x6s with a little board in between. And so I waited until I got to the hardware store, and I got a 2x8 by 12 that I'm going to cut up for the steps. And then I got 3 pieces of siding that they're not going to stay whole like that. I'm going to actually be cutting them up and using them as skirting, because there's some spots on my house where the skirting that was installed a dozen years ago at least, and it was used wood then, because I re-sided my house. And when I re-sided my house, and when we re-sided parts of my daughter's house, we had some of that siding left over that had rotted ends or just small defects. We cut those off and used the good parts of those pieces of siding to go ahead and skirt the houses. And that makes perfect sense, but it was used siding at the time. And now here it is 12 years later, and some of it has just had it. And before wintertime, I do need to get in there and get it replaced, but I was waiting because it's on the back side of the house, and there's garden beds that run right up next to that, almost the entire length of the house. So I was waiting for harvest season to be over. I didn't want to kill any plants, to go ahead and dig a trench next to it because, again, the garden beds run right up to the siding. So I wanted to be able to dig out the dirt from the garden beds back, 18 inches or something, so I can actually get in there and work. So I can pull that siding off and get that going before winter. So that's what this is for. So I'm going to replace some of that siding, some of that skirting with this. I'm going to be putting gutters on the front of my house, not the back of my house. That doesn't matter to me as much. As, in fact, there's so much vegetation there that any water that runs off the house just hits it. So it's not hurting anything to be there. But on the front of the house, that's what, shortened the life of that deck. That's what's going to shorten the life of the new deck that I built next to my pool, in between the pool and the house last year. And I did a video on that. And I want to protect that as well. And I noticed last winter, whenever I'd go out onto that deck, everything that would drip down during the day would solidify during the day and be frozen by night, and it just made a big mound of ice all the way along the length of that deck. So I want to go ahead and get the entire front of the house, get the gutters on it. So I got all that stuff. And so here this morning, I got the boys finishing up their masking on a truck. I'm just doing a masking video right now, in fact, but I'm done with what I wanted to do in there for the moment. They're finishing up the masking on the truck here today, and I'm going to go finish up my stairs. I'm going to unload that siding. I'm going to go check the status of the garden in the back and see if I can get started on that part of it yet. Probably not, so I'll probably just be storing it. And I'm going to be taking this pallet of sand that I picked up. This is my sandblasting sand, and I'm going to be putting it in the shed with the other sandblasting sand, and getting this pickup emptied out here this morning. Okay, so I'm out in front of my house here, and I've got all my stations kind of set up, and that's kind of the first thing I always do if I can. If I know I'm going to be doing a repetitive action, which we do a lot of in my shop, I'll set up a station. And what I've done is I've pulled one of these homemade tables, just a piece of scrap plywood on top of a stool that's been screwed down to the stool. And that's what I use. I've got a number of them in the shop, and I've just pulled one of them out of the shop for this. Got my drills and all my lags and stuff. Now, I don't replace every screw in a job like this. They've got these Torx head screws in them, and that's what I put in years ago. And more often than not, probably at least 19 out of 20 that you go to pull out are still in really great shape, even though it's been a dozen years. So I just reuse them. But a lot of times when the deck got built, they got sunk down beneath the surface of the wood just a hair, and then the wood kind of grew. I mean, it didn't grow. It's not a living thing anymore, but it did. The hole that I left kind of grew over the top of them, and makes it difficult to reach down there with a pick and clean the dirt out of the heads, and then blow the dirt out of the heads, and then get a hold of them and pull them out without stripping them out. And that's what this is for. This just goes down in there like this, and it just cleans them out. I'm not drilling into the thing. Then I'll get in there with a pick, and I'll just run it around in there, and then I'll blow them out, and then they'll all come right back out. And more than 90%, 95% of them are going to be reused on this deck. But for any of them that do need to be replaced, I've got some here. And then here I've got this station set up. This is Kittrick's saw. I borrow it all the time because my crosscut saw is a cheap one that isn't even accurate. The 90 degree isn't even 90 degree. It's like 91 or 92 degrees. So everything you cut in it gets screwed up. And so I don't use it all that often. So I just borrow his. And here's the 2x6s I have left over from the last job. Well, they're for this job. They just didn't get used yet. And here's the 2x8 that I bought. I'm going to either store this siding today, or I'm going to start on that job today. I'm not sure. We don't have any rain in the weather forecast coming up for the next 10 days. So in all truth, I'll probably just start on those gutters that I have sitting over there here today once I'm done with this. But I'm going to finish this job, clean up all my mess, and then I'm going to probably start on those gutters. Right after I back this pickup up over there and unload that sand on top of that other sand. And once again, this is a dozen years old, but since I took the time to put poly on all these boards that were never green treated when I bought them and put them in, because that just wasn't in the budget at the time, and so I did take the time to get the undersides of the steps. So you look at the top side, look at the underside, still looks new. Same with under here. All this still looks new and it's holding up great. It's not rotted at all. And one could make the argument that, well, yeah, of course it's underneath, but I was a carpenter for quite a few years before I ever went into business. I worked for the railroad, and I've worked for myself for many, many years. But before that, I was a carpenter for a few years. And I got to say, almost every deck we ever took the decking off of, what was underneath was every bit as rotted, because there's gaps in between all the boards. Those gaps sit and store snow. They get dirt in them, and then the dirt gets water in it, and then that dirt stays wet for sometimes months. So these spots right here would normally be rotted out completely, and they would rot down the sides. Nothing like that. So it did pay off to take my time to go ahead and get that can of poly and poly everything underneath here. Now I'm not replacing the entire deck, just the decking. Hi, Jepper. See, that's what I was talking about. Before, the edge of the step was pretty level with these uprights that I put in here. Now we've got a good 1/2 inch gap, and only 2 boards instead of 3. So that's really what I was after. Now I'll go ahead and get these screwed down one by one till we reach the top. And again, just like with the other ones, when you get out here next to the edge, I'm gonna go ahead and drill them. That way, this is really wet wood. It won't split right now, probably. But in a year, you'll look and 90% of them will have a split from the screw out to the end that, you know, it's just going to allow water in and weather and that sort of thing, and that's not what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and drill every single one of them on the outside. The center ones I'm not worried about. And again, we're making sure that the heart of the wood is on the downside of on the underside if we can, just to keep the curvature going this way, just so when it starts to cup over the years, it won't cup upwards, it will just continue to cup downwards. All right, gang, well, this project is completely done. I'm gonna go ahead and clean this stuff up. And these boards are of a size that I really am not gonna use for anything. And so what I do with those, I'll take the chop saw, the chop saw that I have in the shop that's just a cheapie that doesn't even get its angles right. And I'll go ahead and cut these in half, stack them over by the fire pit. And the next time we have a fire, which probably will be this week, we'll burn them up. Okay, I've got everything cleaned up from the last job, from finishing the deck there, and now I've got everything spread out here for my next job. Some tree branches there because the trees are encroaching on the side of the house. The cats love to crawl out on them and get onto the house, in fact, and that's not been a problem with me, except for now they're right in the way where the gutter was going to go, so I had to cut a few of them down. And here I've got everything spread out into a station the way I need it here. These are braces that will hold it in place, and these go across the tops of those braces. The way they look when they're finished is just like this. You can see that brace right here. I just slipped it on the end of there to show you how that goes. And this is my one downspout. I'm going to have the entire thing stretching the whole length of the house. I already have my line snapped, and I've already verified with the level that the line is going to drain down to that end. I don't really need more water at this end. During the winter time, water tends to gather in the driveway in the low spot right there anyway. I don't need to add to it. So I wanted it all go down to that end, because the property, I don't know how well it shows on video, but the property actually goes downhill here. And so I'm going to go ahead and run it off the end of the house and just run it right off the property. And so this is going to go on the end. I got one of the downspouts with just the circular thing in it. That limits the amount that it'll take, but we very seldom get torrential rain. And the reason I got it that way is so when I put my downspouts, which are down there, my downspouts are just stacked up down there at the end of the house. But when I put them on there, I can angle them however I want. And that way I'm going to angle it, you know, basically instead of coming straight out from the house, I'm going to angle it that way. So it comes down and then it hooks to this, and then it hooks to another downspout that takes it right off the property. And then I've got all these braces. I've got all my top gutter screws. Those will be one of the last things to go in each section. I've got my right and my left end piece, and I've got these just to hold the downspout to the house. And I've got all my sections here. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start on the end down here and put my downspout section up, and then just build it up from there all the way to the end. One section at a time. I'm going to put couple braces on each one, and this will hold it in place nicely until I come through and finish it off with these top screws here. Well, burning daylight, we're already well into the afternoon. Might as well get started. And so what I've done here is I've installed one of these and all those are meant to do is just hold the thing. They're not meant to secure it and hold it for the lifetime of the thing. You can see this, I mean, that's what these aren't meant to do. These are meant to just hold it in place. And they can stay there once the gutter is in place. It's not gonna hurt a thing. So I put one up in about where the middle of the gutter is. And I put one up here to hold this up. And then I put one of these guys here. And then I pulled this, before I ever put any of this up, I pulled this piece out so I could see where the trusses are. And I've measured out, here's a mark, just a pencil mark so it's hard to see. And then 2 feet later, there's another one. And so every 2 feet, I put one of these marks. That's right where the trusses are. And that's right where those are gonna go. So right now I've just got that. Since I'm only one guy up here, this is more of a two-man job, but since I'm the only one up here, I just put one of those in the middle to hold the gutter, and then one of these slip joints on the end of here. And I had to go get a screwdriver from the shop because I need to bend that little guy out right there. It's in the way, but once I get that bent out, you just slip this into that slip joint like that. It's not all the way in yet. I need to push it in about another 1/8 of an inch or something like that. Now it's all the way in. And then I'll fold this over here and up underneath, and I'll fold these down to keep them from catching too much water as they go by. I'm not a big fan of this design, if I'm honest with you. I can see why seamless gutters are a thing, because this is just gonna, every bit of debris that comes down here is just gonna get hung up on this and immediately create a dam. I can see this being problematic in the future, but this is the stuff I bought. This is what I'm going with. But I can see why seamless gutters are popular. And then I'll go ahead and roll this over on here, snug all this stuff up, press this down in all the places that I can, try and make it as snug as I can. And then I'll come back here and put in one of these, and then go 2 feet and put in another one of these. And every 2 feet, I'm gonna have one of these, all according to this bottom line. I realize I have 3 lines. That's because I wanted to get up on here as much as I could to start with and see where I was. And then once I put a level on there, I realized this wasn't down as much as I wanted. I wanted more of a gradient so the water flows a little better. So then I snapped another line and tried it. And then I snapped a 3rd line, and the 3rd line, that bottom one, is the one I'm gonna have to go with. Now that 3rd line might be at the bottom here, but at the other end of this 80-foot house, it's clear at the top. And so that's what I've done, because I didn't want 2 downspouts, one at each end. I just wanted the one, so that's kind of the price I got to pay. And so at this point, I'm going to put these gutter screws in, one at a time here, until I get close to that end. Then I'm going to put another slip joint right here, and then I'm going to, as soon as I get that slip joint installed on the end, I'm going to go down about 4 feet or 5 feet, because these are 10-foot lengths, put another one of these on so it'll hold it while I'm working, and then rinse and repeat until I get to the end. And I should have it done. I mean, it's fairly early afternoon. It's 1:30 or 2. I should have this done by the end of the day if all goes well, and sometimes it does. And now here I'm at the other end of the property, and this is one of the next projects I have to do. This one comes out of a nearby town, and I need to move this trailer out of the way. But as you can see, these marks on the ground here, these white marks, they go up underneath this trailer and they go over here. They're roughly the size of a semi without a trailer on it. And what those marks represent is a spot where here in today's Sunday, and sometime at the beginning of the week, so tomorrow or Tuesday, the city crews are going to show up here. And again, I'm not in city limits, but the city manager here has been more than good about working with me, and they're going to let me get on city water and sewer. And I already have worked that deal out. I've already paid for it, and now he's already come out, and he's the one that put these marks. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be bringing a hydrovac truck out, And the reason they're bringing a hydrovac truck out is because they don't want to accidentally find their water main or anything else the hard way. And so what they'll do is with a hydrovac truck, they inject the ground with high pressure water and immediately vacuum it back out. And so what that does is that harmlessly excavates dirt without rupturing pipes or any other sort of utilities that might be there. We've already called all the call before you dig people, and we've already gotten everything marked. And internet and fiber optic cable, everything around here has already been marked. But we don't know exactly where this water main is, and I didn't even know that we had a water main on our property. I would have never expected it. And I could explain to you the whole history of how it happened, but who gives a shit. But the point is, because of activities that happened in years past, the neighbors over there, not the current neighbors, they've switched. This has switched ownership a few times since we've been here, but the owners back in the 80s wouldn't let them have an easement across there. And so they actually put one of their water mains, a big 4 or 6 inch water main, right across my property down this same easement where this electrical line. See that gap in the trees right there? That little V? That's a big gap in the trees that runs for miles and miles because of this electrical. And this is a high power electrical line. And they have an easement, of course, across my property, which is what I used as an excuse to get this property as cheap as I did. And in the same easement, the city has their easement just underneath it for a water main. And I didn't even know that until I talked to the city manager and he brought the maps out and showed me. And so we're going to be tapping into this water main right here. They're going to find it here at the beginning of the week. They're going to do my tap for me. And then, as you can see, I'll step over here and then just turn around. See that pickup with the water tank? Just behind it, there's that little building. And that building only sticks up out of the ground a couple feet because it's a well house. It actually goes down underground. So just behind that pickup, that's where this is going. So from here, wherever they find the thing, they're going to do it. Wherever they find their water line, they're going to do a tap right here. And then I'm going to dig right up the driveway and straight to the back of my cistern, which is just on this side of the pump house. So it's just on this side of the gate that you see in the fence there. And I'm going to use my backhoe and dig that out here at the beginning of this next week. If they have this done by Tuesday, then I'm going to be working on it Wednesday. But I won't be working on it Wednesday faithfully unless that truck's done. And that's the reason I'm pushing to get that truck done, because today's Sunday, and if I have the truck done by Tuesday or probably Wednesday morning, we'll finish it up. Wednesday morning, we'll probably put it back together. And then I'm freed up. Then I can get my backhoe, get over here, and dig in my water line. So in other words, in the space of 1 week, we will have done a semi. I will have re-decked my deck. I will have put gutters on the front of my house. And I will have dug in and maybe even applied and filled in my water supply. Again, when I say we always got something going on, I'm not kidding in the least. And now I'm going to step out of the front of the shop because I hear that that hydrovac truck pulled up. And what they're going to do is they're going to hydrovac out a hole and determine where my lines are at the bottom of my driveway first, because that's where it turns that corner. And then they're going to come up and do it exactly where they intend to install the tap. And here they are, just getting ready to start their work down at the bottom of the driveway. Just getting ready to get going here. All right, there it is. There's the water main, big old 6-inch water main. And there they are, hydrovacing out the second spot where they believe the water main runs up the property there. So by now it's 10 o'clock in the morning. I've already come out here and shot my fenders. I've already come and restocked my job because I had to put all this stuff, I had to hide all this stuff away yesterday because it got so windy yesterday afternoon and I want everything blowing away. I've already restocked my job. I'm getting ready to do my last third of gutters along the house. As you can see, just a little stretch left. Meanwhile, right over there, they're hydrovacing out the second location, getting ready to expose my water main so they can put a pit and everything that makes it official for a water tap in that location, maybe even today. And I can start digging maybe by this afternoon. All right, gang. I would call that mostly finished, and the only reason I would call it mostly finished is because I've got everything up. It's nice and straight. I'm real happy with it. But I need to take every one of those slip joints that's on this, and I'll show you what those look like. This is between every single joint. And I need to bend every one of those out just a little bit, just flay them out a little bit. And then there's some specialized caulking that goes in there. And there's different kinds that you can use, but I got basically the most expensive and highest rated one I could get. And I got a couple tubes of it. And for each one of those slip joints and on the end joints, I'm going to flip those tabs out, squirt a bunch of this underneath, flip the tabs back down, and then put more on top, and then work the whole thing around to where each one of these joints is gobbed up, in hopes that they don't leak. I'd say my chances are 85% that they won't leak, but I mean, when you've got that many joints and they're built kind of sloppily, I didn't build them, I just put them together the way they are, and they're not airtight by any stretch. So I'm going to do everything I can do, and hopefully it doesn't leak. But that's the very last step. And then this afternoon, I'm going to, I got to run to a different town because I got the recommendation from the city manager of what he thinks I should use for 1-inch pipe for my digging project. And it's the pipe that they're most used to using themselves and that they're most used to tying into, and that all their spare fittings and all their stuff, so just in case I don't get enough fittings or one of the fittings doesn't work or something goes wrong, they actually have spares that will go to that pipe system. So rather than trip things up and go get my own pipe of my choosing, I've got the recommendation on the pipe that they use, and I'm going to run to a neighboring town here about almost an hour away and get all of that pipe and all the fittings and everything I'm going to need to finish my water project here. And then that way tomorrow morning I can just start fresh, or maybe even this afternoon if I have time. I'll just start fresh and get to digging. And once I get to where they've hydrovac'd that area out, which is right here on the other side of the property, you see there's the pipe. And then what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be digging a pit every bit as big as this off of this side of the pipe, because this is where they're going to want to put their water tap and all their stuff that's going down in this hole and that involves the water tap is all going to go on this side of it. So I need to dig a pit at least that size, big enough a person can comfortably get down in there and work off of this side of it. And then I'm going to dig my ditch from there, from the edge of that pit that I dig, all the way up this driveway into the backside of my cistern, so I can then tie in there. But as I mentioned, the first thing I want to do is go get all my pipe, all my fittings, all my stuff, get it on site. That way, late this afternoon or tomorrow, I can just get to digging. And the quicker I get that pipe laid in the ground, the quicker that they're going to get back here, because they said just call us when you're done. So as soon as I get all that pipe laid in and get everything all ready to tie in, they're going to show up and spend a day or part of a day tying it in, and then I'll officially have city water on this property. Well, all right, we're about to get this party started. I've got my materials here, my water line and my fittings. Got all the fluids checked in my backhoe. It's ready to go. I've got a stock tank float that I intend to install in the bottom of my cistern, so when it gets full enough of water, the water shuts off. The water being fed from the water main shuts off whenever it's full enough. And so I have my metal detector, because what I have to locate is an electrical that's been buried right in here somewhere. And that's the electric that I put in, the service, the actual 200 amp service that I put in from the pole down there to this house. And then right in here somewhere is another phone line that we put in. And I'm going to use a metal detector to find it. And then up here is another phone line, but I'm not worried about it because it's not going to be over where we're digging. And the first thing I'm going to do is locate everything I've got to locate and get it marked before I begin digging. And now on this end, where my cistern is, I'm going to need to take out this section of fence right here. So I need to take this whole watering apparatus out here, take this section of fence out right here, because this is where my cistern is. And the lid is at this end of the cistern, so it runs down into here, probably in here somewhere is where the end of it is. It's a 1,000-gallon, 1,100-gallon cistern. So the end will be right in here somewhere, so I'll have to take this pole out, take this stuff out, get it back out of the way, and then I'll find this end of the cistern, because that's where the inlet is, and I'll get it uncovered, and then I'll know where I can start digging. Because like I said, I got to get this figured out first, exactly where I need to be in here first, and then I can start digging my ditch this way from this location.